Welcome back to RealHouseDIY. I have a Hoover Windtunnel vacuum. It's about 10 years old. Stopped powering on. Today we're going to open it up, take it apart, see what's wrong with it, and see if we can fix it. First, if you look at the troubleshooting, the manual, it's really limited on what to do. Here we've got the owner's manual, Hoover Windtunnel bagless upright. Troubleshooting is on page 14. And this section here, vacuum won't run. Power cord not firmly plugged into outlet, blown fuse or tripped breaker. Possible solution there. They're talking about the fuse or breaker in your house, not the fuse that's actually in the vacuum. And then thermal protector activated. Unplug and allow vacuum to cool for 30 minutes. This will reset the thermal protector. So the symptoms that my vacuum had, I was vacuuming one room and it was fine. Turned it off, unplugged it, moved to the next room, plugged it in, and that would not turn on. I did notice the lights were dimming in the room a little bit when I first turned it on. I've also been noticing that it's been having trouble starting up when you have the brush setting on these lower settings with a high pile carpet. But then after it's running for a couple of minutes, you can turn this down, it'll run fine on a carpet. So if it doesn't turn on, the obvious thing to do, unplug it, plug in a different appliance like a lamp, make sure that outlet has power. That'll tell you the problem is with your vacuum and not something in your house. Make sure your filters aren't clogged. Here you have this indication here. If it's red, it's clogging. And something I always forget on this vacuum, it actually has a HEPA filter right down here that you can clean out. And then also wait for a half hour and then try turning it on again. If it still doesn't work, then we're going to have to start looking a little bit closer at what the problem could be. So if you happen to have a multimeter set to continuity, you should have some type of reading measure between the two contacts, just like this, and push the button to turn it on. You should read something, low, like 2 ohms, for example. So there it's reading open. To confirm, you can take any other vacuum. They're all going to be very similar. Take that same measurement. Power on. Measures 2 ohms on this vacuum. So this is a working vacuum. And we have an open circuit somewhere in this vacuum. Next thing to do is start to take it apart to see where the problem might be. Assuming that there's no opens in the wire itself, you can pull this out as far as it goes just to make sure. And that's fine. So the problem could be a broken wire, could be the motor itself. On this vacuum there's a lamp right here, but the light bulb that's in there, it's a separate part of the circuit in parallel. If that bulb is burned out, it's not going to make any difference. Then something different on this vacuum, there's actually a fuse in here. So you need a Phillips screwdriver. I'm using a driver with a long bit. Can take these pieces off. And start taking it apart. So taking that off exposes the wiring in here. Here's where you have the fuse in line. The fuse goes up through the switch. Now I've already found out the fuse on mine blue. It's open. So it's right here. It's a ceramic fuse, 20 amps, 250 volts, fast blow fuse. It's axial with the leads on the ends. Measure between those two ends. Don't have continuity, so that's open, the fuse blew. So that's at least problem number one. You need to replace the fuse. Here's the replacement I got. Here's a 5-pack ceramic fast blow fuse, 20 amp, 250 volt. It is shorter than the original fuse, but all the other specs are good. If you want to, you can use your meter to check out everything else in the circuit. Right here is where I took that fuse out. It has this plastic covering over it. There's some burn marks here at the top and bottom. I had to cut the plastic to get the fuse out, and then it's just crimped onto the wire. So right in here you have access to the wiring to check out everything else in the circuit. So these two wires, black and brown, go up to the switch. Right now that's open. If I press the switch to turn on the vacuum, there we have continuity, so the switch works. You can check out the motor. It's going to be red to the white. And there we have 2 ohms. So you would think that the motor might be good. And finally, to check the cord, that's the white and black. So what you can do is check black to one end of the plug. There you go, that's good. And you can check white to the other end of the plug. And that's good as well. And you can open this up a little bit more if you want to look closer at the wiring for the cord or for the motor. I'm not going to. I'm going to start with just replacing the fuse and see if that fixes the problem. The ceramic fuse is a little bit different than, say, this glass fuse where you can actually see the wire inside. You know if that's broken right away if the fuse blew. For the ceramic fuse, you can't immediately tell because of the ceramic surface here that's white. You cannot tell if the circuit inside is broken. You could replace this axial inline fuse with like a fuse block, something that's easier to replace the fuse. But there's hardly any space in here. I'm just going to do the exact same thing that they've done before. I have a couple of these little crimp connectors I'm going to use. If you don't want to go with this couple dollar fuse, the manufacturer does have a part that includes the wiring and the extra connectors that you need. A little bit easier, but it's like $30. At that point, you might as well just start thinking about buying a new vacuum. But for just the fuse, a couple dollars, I'm going to give this a try. I'll cut off the existing crimp. Strip the wire back. And cut about half of the leads off on the fuse. And crimp this first one together. It's good. I'm going to reuse this plastic covering. Slide that on. Then repeat the process for that top connection. And slide that plastic cover back up. I just put a couple of wraps of electrical tape on that to hold it in place. Now with that fuse replaced, should be able to check for continuity at the plug. Press the switch. There we go, we have 2 ohms, it's reading to the motor. So I'll get this back together and try it out. Okay, it's all back together. To try it out, I'm going to use it without the brush. That way there won't be any extra stress on the motor. See if it turns on. Now try with the brush. Got a quick recap for you. It's been about 2 weeks. I've been using the vacuum every couple days. It's working just fine. No lights dimming in the house. The brush is working just fine. So an easy $2 fix to get your vacuum run again. I can only find the 5-pack of the axial fuses, so that was $10. Still worth it to me versus buying a new vacuum. Thanks for watching.